Whereas the kitchen cupboard is dedicated to use, with the old familiar cutlery, threadbare tablecloths, and knives that years of sharpening have brought to the width of skewers, the front room houses stuff that never gets used, often in sets. The set of trifle glasses with green stems, the set of cake knives won at a whisk drive, besides all the items no well-run household should be without, grapefruit knives, a cheese slice, but which are never actually required. It is a museum, this cupboard, to a theory of domestic economy, but it's also a shrine. For somewhere among the packets of dollies and cake frills, the EP&S salad servers, the packets of spills in violent colours, the whist scoring cards, and the enema in its black box, somewhere among all this is the box with Uncle Clarence's victory medal, which, the citation says, would have been conferred on C7/044 Private C.E. Peel, had he lived. The letter is dated Winchester, 10th of May, 1921. In forwarding the decoration, I am commanded by the King to assure you of His Majesty's high appreciation of the services rendered. Even as a small child rooting for biscuits, I can see that His Majesty's high appreciation didn't amount to much. Besides, what His Majesty's high appreciation didn't run to, could not be expected to run to, was that Uncle Clarence had been ruptured. So, while everyone who died in the war died needlessly, Uncle Clarence died more needlessly than most. My mother always says he should not have gone at all. I do not quite know what being ruptured means. Some shame attaches to it, I know, because Mr. Dixon, who takes Standard 5 at Armley National, where I go to school, is ruptured, and all the boys think it's a joke. Mr. Dixon is the first male teacher I have come up against. He is short and fat, and said to wear a truss. What a truss is I don't know either, but I think of it as a device to stop your balls popping out. I find it difficult to connect, still less reconcile, someone as noble as Uncle Clarence, and a condition that is both shameful and comical, and affects such as Mr. Dixon. And maybe I pity Uncle Clarence less for his early death than for his earlier rupture, though, as my mother says, the one should have prevented the other, because in that condition he could not enlist. With the risk of attaching to any surgical operation at the time, he was under no obligation to have the rupture treated, so for a year or two the matter was left, and he went on living at home with his sisters. But in the 3rd year of the war he found himself jeered at in the street, taunted by girls from the munitions works, and so he went into St. James's, had the operation, and in due course joined up. And here he sits in the photograph, just 3 months before his death, a whole man again. In the photograph he is wearing puttees. At what point private soldiers cease to wear these long bandages wrapped round their legs, I don't know. It is certainly gaiters by 1939, anklets, webbing, khaki, pairs too, when I am called up in 1952. But the puttee survives, along with many of the attitudes that go with it, in the stagnant military backwater, the Army Cadet Corps. No school I ever attend runs to one, but in the short time we are at Guildford, my brother is a pupil at the grammar school there, and in a uniform identical to that of Uncle Clarence, goes on manoeuvres in Purbright. I watch him as he winds off these muddy brown bandages, to find his legs rigid like those of a common housefly, pictured 1,000 times life-size in the Children's Encyclopedia. I never remember anyone mentioning Uncle Clarence's grave. There is no photograph of that in the dresser, only a picture of the War Memorial tablet in St. Mary of Bethany, Tong Road. If he has a grave, no one visits it. My grandmother never goes abroad, nor do my parents for that matter, and though they think of themselves as women of the world, Auntie Kathleen and Auntie Myra only take to globe-trotting late in life. So, knowing only that he died at Wipers in 1917, in March 1986 I write to the War Graves Commission at Maidenhead, curious to know if he is just a name on a monument, or whether he enjoys the luxury of a burial place. It turns out to be more than one and less than the other, for the records say that, though he is commemorated by a special memorial in Larchwood Railway Cuttings Cemetery, and is thought to lie within that cemetery, the exact location of his body is lost. So now it is a wet Friday morning, and we have come over on the hovercraft, and are driving through Saint-Omer, and north to Zillebeke, a village south-east of Ypres, or since we have now crossed the Belgian frontier, Ypres. The guidebook says there were 3 battles at Ypres. The first, in 1914, ended in stalemate and marked the beginning of trench warfare. The second, in 1915, saw the first use of gas. The Blue Guide calls Passchendaele, the third battle in 1917, tragic and barren, as if that distinguished it from the previous 2. The ground gained or lost in each case amounted to a few kilometres. The dead, not noted in the Blue Guide, amounted to 250,000.